Your alternative talk radio contact. The Planet. KGRAradio.com.
With infinite complacence, people went to and fro the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
How you doing, Sysco?
All right, baby. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. It's really good to be talking to you guys again. Thanks for doing this.
Well, happy Halloween.
Yes, happy Halloween. What we have here is our third annual All Halloween with Steve, Stockton, and Sysco Murdoch. So there you go.
What a tradition.
Yeah,
what a tradition.
We got to keep it going. It's just too good. We have to do it.
I'm just excited. I'm just, excited to hear ghost stories and be scared out of my skin.
That's right. Pretty normal for us, That's right up our alley. So
I bumped into a medium a couple weeks ago. Go figure. And it's just a great big burly friend of mine, and he just doesn't pull any punches. And he looks at me and he says, "Wait a minute, I'm getting something." And I'm like, "Oh no, what's he gonna tell me?" And he just looks at me. He goes, "You've got way too much paranormal in your life." And I'm like, "Well, man, what are you going to do?" He's like, "You got to be careful with that. You got to be careful." I'm like, "It's my job."
Yeah. You're like, it's paranormal to others, but it's normal.
Choose what I write about. It chose me.
Yeah.
This is my job. What do you do?
Yeah. It's pretty normal for us.
I know. What a year this has been for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know what I would do without talking about all this and reading about it and just being completely obsessed by it, to be honest.
Yeah, well, that's what he was telling me. He's like, "You've got way too many." He's like, "You're 24-hour ghosts," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, welcome to the haunted house. This is my life,
Well, and
that's why it's good to carry crystals and ground yourself every so often. Smudge your house. Because some of that's just watching YouTube videos and listening to stuff, it can leave some negative energy behind.
Yeah. Well, I got a 55-gallon drum of holy water, and
you're like, I pretty much bathe in it every day. That's just how we roll.
Just splash it around, it gets crazy.
The smudge behind each ear.
Yep. You think I'm kidding? I mean, I told you this. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sharon.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. No, before you go on, you know what I'm picturing? Because you mentioned the big old drum of it. I'm picturing Brad Pitt in Interview with the Vampire when he decides to burn the house down. And he's just walking through and just tossing all that gasoline everywhere. Do you guys remember that?
Oh, yeah.
That's how I picture you. You're like, you know what? I'm going to handle business right now. Just take care of this negative energy.
That is just how you walk through life, It's funny because it sounds, I don't want to sound arrogant because, you can't be arrogant. You can't be, that's not what I'm trying to come off as, but it's just like, what you know. And once you get to that point, you just kind of handle things that way. It's like, not having it. Just not having the crap today. And I told you one time my husband came home and I was having these things. I went somewhere. I forget exactly where it was. I know I was helping some lost ghosts, and it was really intense. And I came home and then I started noticing some really severe things happening, like animals getting sick and things moving and just all around creeped out places in the house. And I'm like, not having it. Threw all the windows open, went and got all the gear and just ran through here like Brad Pitt. Just doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I've had stuff follow me home like that. I've salted and saged. Just you got to run it out sometimes.
And it was gone. So
mirrors especially needs attention sometimes. There's just something creepy about mirrors. The Victorian times when somebody died, they would hang a cloth over the mirrors and stop the clocks.
Yeah, and cover them.
Supposed to.
Now I've seen all the new paranormal reality, quote unquote, shows that are on now that all the cool kids are watching. They actually had two mirrors facing each other, and the guy walks in and goes, "Oh, there's a portal here. We got two mirrors facing each other. That's it. Yeah, they're coming and going. They're coming and going."
Have you guys ever? And I need to. I'll ask this, and then we need to kind of swing back and ask what you guys have been up to and everything, and do a proper intro for you guys. But have you guys ever sat in a psychomantium, and what do you think about those?
Go ahead, Steve.
Are you talking about where you have the mirrors lined up in a box? And is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, the dark little tiny room with the one chair and just the mirror in there with you.
I have. And I don't know, it's kind of like scrying. I think sometimes, depending on your mood and whatever state you're in, I've seen things in the mirror. But one I tried a really unique one time. It was made like an 8-sided box out of mirrors. You climbed in it, sat down, they turned out all the lights, and then you're in there with a candle. So it was like the infinity mirror thing. You've got reflections from every direction. And that was a very unique experience. That one kind of weirded me out because I would see things in some of the other reflections, that just weren't there. So I don't know how you explain it.
I think it's very much like scrying, or if you go back, way back in the day, as you say, where they would look into the well. And they would say whatever it was that they said, or the lake or the water. You were supposed to move the water with your left hand, and once it settled, you were supposed to see the answer to whatever question. There's been multiple movies popping into my head. I think even, what was that one with Cold Mountain? I think she even did that. She saw him walking. What, didn't she? Wasn't that a well?
I think that was Cold Mountain. Yeah. Well, and they did there was a whole well tie-in in The Ring, except they weren't like watching, or trying to get any scrying out of that. That was just the poor creepy girl climbing up out of there.
Yeah, bowls of water. I know that's been used. Of course, reading tea leaves and stuff like that, that's totally different. That's on another end. But any kind of thing like that with a bowl of water, I think, I could be wrong, but I even think in The Wizard of Oz, wasn't the witch using a bowl of water? Was that another thing I'm thinking about? I don't know. I think anything that holds liquid. I see things in my beer all the time.
Oh, me too. Yeah, in the Jack Daniels, all the time. I believe that's the closest thing.
Glass.
Yeah.
Well, I had a long talk the other night with somebody sitting there staring at my. Maybe it was Samuel Adams.
My grandmother, the fortune teller, she would use, and she didn't call it scrying, she called it something else, but she would take a cup of coffee and sit and stare into it and get messages and things.
Well, Steve, in one of our early conversations, I think maybe even the very first one where I told my shadow person story, I think, didn't you say that some of your, maybe your grandmother or somebody did in fact read tea leaves?
Oh, yeah. My grandmother on my mom's side, the one that she was self-proclaimed gypsy witch, she read tea leaves and coffee grounds. Kind of the same thing. They'd make coffee, and then the person would drink the coffee and dump the grounds out in a saucer, and she might swirl it around a little bit, and then she could see stuff in there. It's to me, it's like seeing shapes in the clouds. If you look long enough, your brain will put things together. But she did some fairly accurate readings that way.
Have you guys seen the movie Coraline?
I have not.
Anyhow, well, Steve brought up a great point, because in that movie, and they call it a kids movie, but it can have really creepy parts. I actually really like that movie. It's animated, but anyhow, then the neighbors next door are two older ladies, and they do the whole tea leaf thing. And one of the women is like, well, okay, Coraline, let me see your cup. Let's see what we've got here. And the lady's like, oh, it's very ominous. It's a dark hand. And it looked like a woman's very long fingernails and fingers, you know, reaching for something. And then the other lady just turns the cup and goes, oh, I see a giraffe. And, you know, it's just like you said, you just never know what things might look like to one person and the other.
Well, I think a lot of things, I mean, you know, anything you look at, like crystal ball, you know, like the bowls of water, you know, anything like that, the lake, any of those things, it's definitely a tool to just get whoever has that ability to focus. I think the scrying thing, or, you know, the rooms that you guys were talking about, I think that has more to do with your mindset and almost like a meditation, like a quieting, you know, almost like being in, what was that thing that Michael Jackson used to sleep in? That chamber.
The hyperbaric chamber.
Right. You know, you're almost like you're underwater. Everything just seems to stop, and you're within your own mind without any kind of outside influences. And if you're staring at things,
the flotation, sensory deprivation tanks, if you've ever done that, that is a total trip.
Yeah, yeah. Very much like 11 in, when, you know, that kind of thing. That can be very creepy. I mean, everything can be taken, you know, to the extreme. But anytime you quiet yourself just in a meditation and you open that up and you're willing those things to happen, it's going to open yourself up.
And it's just, it's the tools that you're comfortable with and that you choose to work with. I knew a lady that used to use an old Zenith console TV set. She would tune it to a station where there wasn't any signal and sit there and watch the snow. You know, and
what movie is that? Is that very famous?
That way.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you can do that or not anymore. All the TVs are digital, and there's not any snow. There's either a signal or there's not. So you'd have to have an old school TV to do it. And then I've also heard of people taking a video camera, hooking it to a monitor, and then pointing the camera at the monitor, so you get all these weird shapes and visual feedback and stuff, and then seeing things in that. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, that reminds me, like Shannon said, White Noise, you know, and I don't think that movie got its props like it should have. That was a creepy flick.
So good. I still love watching that movie.
I do too. And I mean, it really got in depth of how this can really take you over if you let it. I mean, it reminded me of that woman that, back in the early 70s, she started doing the EVPs, and she would just walk around the graveyard with the old school tape recorder and talk to people, and then go back, and she would listen to it all. And pretty soon she wound up moving. I can't remember what state it was, but it was by a harbor. Let's say just like Maine, in the harbor. And she was almost all by herself, you know, during the winter. It was very, let's say, dead out there, you know, there wasn't a lot going on. And she would just sit there and go over these tapes and over these tapes, and until it just almost consumed her. I mean, she was very good at it, and she got a lot of
those. The more you listen to it, the more stuff you can hear. It's like over time, it becomes clearer, which I always found.
But is it your own self that does it, or is
I don't know, like
allowing the other stuff, giving the other stuff power to take more and more, a little bit of you at a time, which is what kind of White Noise was about, to the point where they just came out and broke him.
Yeah.
You know, that was an incredible movie, I thought.
Robinhood is an investing app that lets you buy and sell stocks, ETFs, options, and cryptos, all commission-free. They strive to make financial services work for everyone, not just the wealthy. It's a non-intimidating way for stock market newcomers to invest for the first time with true confidence. Me personally, being a first-time investor, I enjoyed having all of the pertinent information in one place. And with categories to explore, like 100 most popular, technology, social media, or one of my interests, automotive, you can narrow down your search quickly. And here are some of the values of the Robinhood app. Other brokerages charge up to $10 for every trade, but Robinhood doesn't charge commission fees. Trade stocks and keep all of your profits. It features easy-to-understand charts and market data. Place a trade in just 4 taps on your smartphone. Learn how to invest as you build your portfolio. You can discover new stocks and track favorite companies with personalized news feeds. And there's also custom notifications for price movements so you never miss the right moment to invest. Robinhood is giving listeners a free stock like Apple, Ford, or Sprint to help build your portfolio. Sign up at thefray.robinhood.com. That's thefray.robinhood.com.
Has anybody seen the new Haunting of Hill House on the Netflix?
No, but everybody is freaking out about that show and saying, watch it, watch it, watch it.
Okay, this is me. You know, this is Sysco approved. You know, all thumbs up. I mean, I have never seen from start to finish. You got to catch all the little stuff. Every single thing comes back around. I have a question. It keeps going back. Oh man, it's good. It's good, and that's that.
I saw an article posted on Facebook, and I was guilty. I am guilty of this. I will admit. In this case, I only read the title, but I knew that I wanted to ask you guys if you were watching this because I just saw this a couple days ago. But supposedly, there was some people that were actually getting sick and vomiting while watching The Haunting of Hill House. Did you guys see where people were saying
I
that?
haven't seen it, but I've heard similar reports to that.
I didn't get any of that, but then again, I got a lot of stuff up, you know. So I mean, but I can say that I have had things like that happen.
Yeah,
you know,
I've heard of it. Like, I remember when The Exorcist came out, there was people passing out in the theaters and things.
Right.
But I think that I
didn't get anything like that from it, but I could see how other people could.
Well, I think what Shannon means, though, and correct me if I'm wrong, is more like there's some subliminal energy coming from it that's making people nauseous and sick.
Yeah,
it's not the visual.
Right. I think that's kind of what I got from it. And even just reading the comments underneath, people were actually kind of agreeing. And like there was just something else in there kind of hinting at something dark.
On the technical side, you could mess with the frame rate and the
frequencies too.
The frequency, whether it's at 50 or 60 kilohertz, that can make a difference, like with your computer monitoring things.
Yes.
And that can cause headaches and dizziness. And if a person has just lost the flashing lights affect them, I can't think of the epilepsy. Yeah, if you have mild epilepsy or epilepsy that's undiagnosed, you don't know you have it. I had a friend that went to a haunted house back in the 70s and went into one of the rooms and the strobe lights went off and she hit the floor and she didn't know it, but she had mild epilepsy and that was what triggered it.
That's sad.
Yeah, that's a horrible way to find out.
So there could be a scientific explanation, or it could be some sort of, weird demonic energy or something coming out through it.
Yeah, I don't do haunted houses anymore just for just other reasons completely. I just realized I'm not the best person.
Now you mean haunted house, like an actual haunting of a house, or like a fright?
Like the ones that the JC set up or whatever. The fun ones.
I bet you've never had anybody.
I was talking to my landlady about this today, but down south they had judgment houses. Either of you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's creepy.
What is that?
That's a whole new level of
what is that?
She'd never heard of it, so it must not be a thing out here. But in Tennessee and places around there, those were very common. The churches would set those up to try to scare all the kids into going to church.
basically, it's this. It to me personally, it's like the sickest form of trying to shove your down because you go in.
Yeah, they have
like
car wrecks and drug overdoses and all this, and then at the end, you see these people in hell. You know, they're burning and they're in misery, and they're calling out to Jesus, and then you go to the final room, and that's the ones that were saved or born again Christians or whatever. And it shows them going into heaven, and it's like, you know, how will you choose? You know, it's all very, very dramatic and very heavy-handed. But I've seen people come out just absolute emotional wrecks. I mean, in tears, and
and this is what we want from our religion. I just think that's creepy, man. I mean, the things that people are doing with it just makes me that's kind of a real horror there.
The Southern Baptists in particular like those hellfire and brimstone tactics. I know there was one town where there was a car wreck that a bunch of teenagers were in. They'd been drinking, and I think it killed all of them in the car. They actually bought the wrecked car and put it out on the lawn of the church and had this big sign, "Where will you spend eternity?" You know, these people went to hell. I was like, wow.
Jeez.
That's horrible, Steve. I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, I don't even want to go down that path because I'll just get really angry. You'll see Sysco go slap.
No. We'll keep it as light in the dark as we can. Okay, so wait. Now I know that we can do this for hours and without my doing a proper intro for you guys. But let me at least attempt it, okay? And then we can dive right back in because I love you guys and I want everyone to know who you are. If somehow they're just now catching into the fray and they don't know who you are. So Steve Stockton is an author of Strange Things in the Woods. He's got a couple of those books. Plus, he's got My Strange World out. And I believe I will ask him when I'm done with my little quick monologue here that he's working on something else right now. But Steve has been on with me. I don't even know how many times. You and Sysco have been on with me a number of times. Like I said, this alone is the third annual episode for Halloween with these two. I love them. That's why they're back on. I first told in full my shadow person story when I had Steve on. That was episode 9. That was entitled Strange Things in the Woods with Steve Stockton. It was a perfect time to go ahead and tell my story. And by the way, just to throw this in here really quickly, Steve, if you don't mind, because I think I just brought this up to Dave Schrader on Midnight in the Desert very recently. I brought up your sentient ball of leaves story, and I would love for you to retell that if you could. If, you know, maybe people haven't heard that. That's still to this day, I think about that story. So if you wouldn't mind later on throwing that in there. And
sure, absolutely. Glad to be here, Shannon. Thanks for having me back.
Thanks, Steve.
And yeah, this third Halloween together, and I said, I don't know how many times I've been on your show. I was on for the book. I was on for the Haunted Vegas show, and there's others that I can't even remember.
We just like to party all together. It's just how we like to do things. So, yeah, and also we have Sysco Murdoch, and like I said, she's been on a number of times. Everyone knows her as such a captivating speaker. Sysco, you know that you are, and that is also probably why you started your own podcast, Journey Through the Gate. And how is that going? How you feeling about that?
Kicking boo butt, baby.
Good. You already have a number of episodes in the bag, as they say. 33
and counting.
Good job, Sysco. That is so fantastic. I'm so proud of you. It's not an easy thing to do, and you know, keeping it going is a whole nother story. Sometimes the starting it is kind of, there's this excitement, and I've got this thing, and then it's like, oh. Okay, well, I have a schedule to keep now. Oh, crap. You know, it's a whole nother thing. So, congratulations.
I am fully booked till December. I cannot believe how this has happened. I really can't. And I started it, Shannon. I don't know why you started yours, but I started it for the basic reason of I want to hear people's stories. I want them to be able to match their true experience with somebody else's true experience, just so they can try to maybe make their puzzle piece fit a little bit better. I mean, we're not going to get the whole cover to the box, but at least maybe you can clarify a little bit of what maybe happened to you and get some answers.
Right.
Or get some direction if you've got like abilities, you know, and you don't know what to do with them. So maybe, you know, and I've created this like paranormal chain of helpers, which is so cool, all like over the country so fast that, you know, if I have somebody in Ohio that's having an issue, I kind of zero in and go, okay, I can call somebody out there. Let's see if they can call and talk to this person. Maybe it's just fantastic.
Isn't that a nice kind of a secondary thing that maybe even you weren't expecting to happen, but it does, and then all of a sudden you kind of you feel like you have a team behind you, and it's a nice, it's such a nice community feeling. And
then when you look, you know, things you don't think about, and then you look and you find out you've got like 6 people in China listening to your podcast. You're going, who's listening to me in China?
Yes.
What is that? It's so cool. It's so cool. I love it.
Congrats.
I love it. Thanks, babe. Thanks. And you know, it's people like you and Zariah Askath, and the whole reason I just said, you know, I'm going to give this a whirl. You know.
Well, you're whirling away. I'll just say that right now.
It's been a blast. It's been a blast. Well, it really is. Thanks, sweetie.
Of course, of course. Steve, am I right? Are you working on something new? What does Steve Stockton have going on right now?
Steve Stockton stays busy all the time. I've got books, at least 3, in various stages of completion. And in fact, Sysco, do you want to make an announcement?
Yes, we are fixing, good old Southern word there, to launch our book.
It's about time.
I know.
Sorry, I had to throw that in there. I'm so excited.
It's been a while in the making, but it'll be worth the wait, I promise.
We were proofreading since, I don't know what time this morning, early, with the time difference and everything. We're proofreading it. He actually has it up on Kindle, and it's ready to hit the launch button. We are trying so hard to get it out for Halloween. It's a big announcement to everybody. By the time people are listening to this, it should be up on Kindle.
Can we say the name of this?
To let people know that on Halloween, when you're listening to this, all 3 of my books, Strange Things in the Woods, More Strange Things in the Wood, and My Strange World, are going to be free for 24 hours, starting at midnight on Halloween to midnight November 1st. So if you don't have my books, now's a good time to get them for free.
How cool is that?
That is very fitting.
Art will be up there. And it is called We Are All Children in the Wilderness of the Afterlife, a guided tour through a haunted life. And it's my stories, my true stories that have happened to me throughout life. And it's not just the stories, it's kind of categorized to where, like, here's a couple examples of this, here's some examples of that. But it's told as they happened. And then Steve comes behind each chapter. And just like we talk, he adds whatever pops into his head.
Yeah.
That, you know,
I'm sort of the color commentator, if you will.
It's so, I just love it. I mean, we were reading the stories today, and I'm like, man, this is a good story. You know, I'm reading it because you get drawn in. You know,
hey,
I just love it.
I'm just so proud of you guys. I knew this was coming, and I knew what you guys were working on. And it's going to be so worth it because everyone is going to love it. And Steve and Sysco are such a power-packed duo that this is a no-brainer, you know?
Oh, it's so cool. We're so excited. I mean, so many things have happened in the past 2 years that we've worked on it. I mean, God bless him. Steve has had stuff and I've had stuff. And, you know, we'll finish. You know, things come in and happen in life, you know? But it just seems to be coming out at just the right time because
it's just things happen in their own time, regardless of our plans. So
okay, so how should we kick this little creepy talk off?
Would love
like, who wants to start?
I'm gonna tell you because I'm getting these things, so just bear with me here.
Okay.
I live behind a huge nursery. And I mean for plants, not babies, because that would be creepy hearing babies scream all the time. But the plants only scream, you know, at certain times.
Just very silently.
But right now, it is one of the largest haunted attractions because they and then they do Christmas trees, which is nice.
Yeah.
But right now, my whole street is filled with fog. And it's rolling down the street because it's coming out of the place. And there's teenagers screaming from 7 p.m. till probably 1 a.m. in the morning. And you just keep hearing these blood-curdling screams and clowns and chainsaws and stuff. It's very
I hope it bleeds into the recording. I'm not hearing it now, but I hope that later on it kind of picks something
like these I'll have to walk out front and you can see, but there's all this fog and it's just like, it's so creepy. But
that's cool. I want to live like that all the time. That
right? Halloween every day.
No, you don't. There's like all kinds of stuff going on. But anyway, I thought I would tell you why Sysco doesn't go into haunted. I go into real haunted houses with no problem, but I will not go into a haunted attraction anymore. I was in high school, and it was about, here we go. I was about, hang on, Shannon, because this is it. We're rolling now. Okay, so it was about 6 of us. And we go in, and I was always like the tough one. You put me up first, you know. I got the leather jacket and the purple crazy hair and all this other stuff. So put her up first. We go walking through, and I'm being real brave, you know. And everybody's hanging on to each other. We're walking through this house. It was pretty cool. It was, I believe it was Asbury Park, Jersey Shore, New Jersey. We're going through, and it was put on by the local college drama clubs. So there was some people in there that were really intense. And 2 years before that, they had done this one at Brigantine Castle where we were, and everybody was tripping on, you know, like some people taking acid and stuff like that. One of the guys got a little too overzealous and wound up like stabbing somebody. So you went in there with kind of a little, okay, this is fake, this is fake, this is fake. Well, maybe not. Okay. So you were on edge. And we go walking through, and there's a couple things that jump at you. And it wasn't like today, zombies and things like that, but it was enough. And there was this one guy, and he's dressed as Frankenstein. And I promise you, he was at least 7 foot tall because he had these great big Kiss boots on, you know, real tall platform boots.
Yeah.
And he was great, but he was really, really still. And you couldn't tell with the makeup whether he was just a fake or if he was somebody dressed up. So I stopped, and I'm waiting, and another group kind of went around us a little bit. The guy didn't move, and I said, okay. And I go by, and I let the girl behind me go by, and nothing happened. And I said, okay, cool. So we all walked by, and you go around this little corner. And right as I go around the corner, this big green hand comes behind me and grabs me by the left shoulder. And as soon as he did, I turned around and cold cocked him. I just hit him right in the bolt of the neck, you know. And I was so scared. I was just reacting, and I just kept punching him. And right out of this guy's horrible, wonderful Frankenstein makeup comes this voice, and he goes, "Ow, lady, cut it out! Stop it! Stop it! That hurts!" He sounds like somebody out of like the Three Stooges with this real hot. And now I'm laughing and hitting, and I can't. I hit him so many times, my watch popped off, and I'm laughing. He goes running out the back because now he's scrambling, and I go back outside. And I'm laughing so hard, you know, we're half drunk. And, you know, those belly, you can't stop laughing kind of laughs. And I realized I don't have my watch. I said, man, I'm not going back in there to get that. It's like that. Never going to another haunted house. But that voice coming out of that face, I'll never forget it. It was more creepy than if it had been a deep, scary, you know what I mean? So I don't go into haunted houses anymore. I just don't.
And did he go back in the haunt and work the haunt after getting his ASS beat?
Oh, but I beat him till his bolt was kind of hanging.
I'm gonna beat that bolt right off you. Come here.
I mean, when you're all tensed up like that, you go, I don't think it's safe for them either, to tell you the truth.
No, I'm sure they sign a lot of paperwork before they work at those, right? Like bodily harm and all that.
I've never understood the whole fear factor thing either.
Yeah.
If an alien out of a garbage can and is going to, you know, I just can't help it because that's your reaction, you know.
Right.
And I've calmed that down a lot over time. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know how you react when things just jump out at you like that. But my son did it the other day, and I was just going around the house cleaning, and I'm coming down the hallway, and I'm hitting a little Febreze here and a little Febreze there, and he just pops out of the corner. I sprayed that kid 3 times before I stopped. 3 times. He's like, Mom, it's me. And I'm like, I can't stop. I'm triggered. I'm pulling the trigger. I'm like, God, I'm so glad it's not a gun, you know. God, help us all. I don't go into places anymore. Oh, gosh. You have any good haunted house stories there? Haunted attractions?
I don't know, not really. I kind of avoid those too. I did them like when I was a kid. The JCs would set up one, and it wasn't really that scary. Like you, I prefer actual haunted houses. There is one in particular, though, that I like, and I will visit when I'm around there. In Gatlinburg, Tennessee, there's a little attraction there year-round. It's called Hauntings on the Parkway. That's maybe the name. It's changed names a couple of times. Sometimes it's just been Hauntings. But it really is haunted. The way it's set up, you go in and it's like like a Victorian era seance where there's a spirit riding on slate and there's trumpets that sound and tambourines that shake, typical blackout type seance. Tomfoolery. But back in the 80s, the guy that was the manager of the place, one night while he was closing up after everything was over, had a heart attack and died in like the back of the room behind where the seating is. And then he wasn't found until the next day when whoever opened up came in to get things started and open up. So the guy had been there quite a while. And now they say that during some of the performances, they've heard this guy, and things like in the back of the house where the technical stuff is, things back there get moved around and changed. So if nothing else, it's a great reenactment of what a Victorian era seance was like, but you might just be visited by an actual spirit as well. So that's my favorite one.
Wow. Well, I think about these attractions too, and I've heard a lot about it, and some of it might be urban legend, but I know for a fact when I was living in Alabama that one of the bodies that was hanging from the haunted trail out there was real, and they didn't know it for like 3 or 4 days. 3 or 4 days. Now, how does that happen where you've got an actual body hanging from the tree and they don't realize that this kid's missing for 3 or 4 days? I guess they just thought he had run away. But see, that's the part that bothers me, because you go into these things. How many, show of hands, how many haunted movies or ghost movies or scary movies or slasher movies have we watched where the person that's about to get is going, okay, cut it out. That's not funny. You got to knock it off. And the next thing you know, and that's the point I can't get past, because I just don't trust them, because you got all this stuff in your head, and I don't know how to get past that. So it's not that I'm scared to go in the places, because I go into dark places other people are running out of, but I know what I'm kind of going in there for. But I think what it comes down is like humans are the scariest thing.
No, they really are.
I heard about one where a guy had died on his porch, sitting in a rocking chair, and people, even the mailman, thought, "Oh, that's a great Halloween prop there."
Oh, God!
And the guy sat there for several days, I guess, until he started to give off an odor, and somebody finally figured out, "Hey, that's a dead body."
But that's it. That's like if you see some of these things. I can't remember. It was about 2 years ago, and it was a nice, neighborhood, a development, and you're walking down the street, and I'm taking, I was going with my step grandkids, kind of, and we're walking down, and there's this sheet up, and behind the sheet they were doing like shadow play, and the guys behind the sheet stabbing this woman, it's all pretend. But it was supposed to be a Halloween decoration, but it was real people behind there. And I'm going, what in the world? Wow. I mean, what a perfect cover for people to... It's like you don't know what's real and what isn't anymore. That's my point. It's like it's gone so far that, wow.
The kid really hanging there for like 3 days. Huh? The missing kid is actually part of the attraction. One of the killers thought, well, here's a great place to put this kid.
Yeah. And then there's another famous story. I think it's the Fun House. I think it's the one on the Santa Monica Pier in California, one of the fake bodies that they had in a coffin there turned out to be an actual body. It was some cowboy type gunslinger where somebody had purchased the corpse and had toured it around the country. And somehow it ended up in this fun house in a coffin. And nobody knew it was real until they examined it closely, but it had been there for years.
Yep. Years and years, like 30. Like it went like decades. And you know what? The added bonus to that little thing that really creeped me out. There was supposed to be a thing in one of the attractions that the body was, because it kept getting sold and traded back and forth to all these little freak show, side show things. Well, one of them, when they got the body, they opened the mouth, and inside the mouth was found all these nickel tickets from like 20, 30 years ago, where it was supposed to be up for you to put the ticket in the corpse's mouth, and they're doing it to a real.
Oh my God!
I mean, how cool is that?
Holy smokes!
This is what I'm saying.
See, this is why we have to do this every year. You guys are a treasure trove. I've never heard of any of this stuff. I mean, the kid hanging in the attraction, the tickets in the mouth. I mean, what?
What? I mean, and what's going through your mind that it's a good luck thing for you to stick your nickel ticket as you exit? Oh, put your nickel ticket in the corpse's mouth and make a wish. What kind of? It's not a birthday.
So really, that was a thinking that they thought it was good luck.
In a fun house when I'm dead.
No kidding.
This is nuts. This is nuts. And I mean, what other famous person wound up in a fun house, Steve? You know it. It's right on top of your head.
You got me there. I'm drawing a blank.
John Wilkes Booth.
Okay.
John Wilkes Booth's corpse. John Wilkes Booth's corpse wound up. Okay. Well, first of all, you have to move past the whole he didn't get killed in the barn thing.
Yeah.
And then you have to move past that because, and then he wound up, oh gosh, what was his name? Top of my head. He changed his name to something else anyway. Now he goes on living. And he does a deathbed confession because he's dying. He says, I'm, John Wilkes Booth. And then much to his dismay, he didn't die. So when he got better, he had to leave again and change his name again. He winds up dying. And when he did die, his corpse wound up, I guess they embalmed him. And his body never got claimed. So the guy who owned the funeral parlor, he dies. The body's still there. The wife winds up inheriting the funeral home and everything in it, including the body of John Wilkes Booth. And she doesn't know what to do with it. So there's a carnival in town.
No way.
It's true. And the carnival guy buys the corpse. And then John Wilkes Booth goes on tour for the next,
Oh my God.
I have heard that story about when you hit me with it. I drew a blank, but I have heard that. That they toured the body around. And same with Jesse James. Apparently his body was displayed, and I think he went missing, and nobody knows what happened to it. So next time you're in a haunted attraction, that body may be somebody famous.
Watch what you touch, folks. Yeah, and don't stick anything in anybody's mouth, because,
don't stick in your ticket.
That's a good PSA that goes across all kinds of little suggestions.
Isn't that crazy, though? I mean, things for Halloween. I mean, I've heard multiple, and that poor kid that was hanging there in that haunted trail, that was a suicide.
Aww.
And I've never been able to forget how much sadder it was that 5 days are going by and nobody, so I mean, yeah.
I don't know why I assumed that was a murder situation, but my mind gravitated towards that. I didn't even think of the geez.
And it was just, I mean, there's just so many, and there's been an awful lot I've heard recently too, especially talking to Diane from History Goes Bump. A lot of things that have gone on in the Haunted Mansion in Disney World.
Really? It's active lately?
Well, people seem to want to do bad things in there for some reason. Well, number one thing is ashes. You know, people want to be cremated and left in the haunted mansion. And she said one of the things that people don't realize is they giggle and whatever and go, "Oh, we got away with that," but then they'll shut down because all the cameras.
Yes.
You know, they'll shut down, and then they have to clean. Then you just hose everything out. You know, which is now you're in a vacuum. You didn't wind up in the Disney World. You wound up in the Disney World garbage can, which is sad.
In the vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
And I can confirm that. I worked for Disney in Florida for a couple of years as a live show producer. That does happen. And also, got another creepy one. There is a person, a very wealthy person. I can't name any names, and I can't tell you the exact location, but there is a wealthy person that is buried on Disney property.
Ooh, a full-on burial?
Last request, that was this person's favorite place to visit. And said they had the money, and money talks, and it's not in the park itself, but in the kind of the woods surrounding the park. So that's a big parcel of land they've got there. But there is a person buried. I would
guess Walt Disney would want to be close, but I mean I know you can't say. I'm not trying to prod you. Where is Walt?
Supposedly he's in cryogenic suspension.
That's right.
That's a rumor that he's frozen and he's in Cinderella's castle. The frozen part, I don't know, but he's not in the castle. Because I've been all through it and I looked.
Now, it is a rumor that he's haunting it, but I don't think that ghost on... I don't know if you've heard this one, Shannon, but listeners can look it up on YouTube, Google Disney Ghost on Closed Circuit TV, where they have a man walking very much dressed in like the 1950s, 60s kind of suit and shirt and tie. And he's walking down the lane, and he's following a road that used to be rather than one that is now, which is kind of cool.
And he goes through a metal gate.
Yes, goes through a metal gate across several cameras.
He passes through a closed, locked metal gate.
Now,
I've seen that video. It's worth looking up.
So Steve says it's worth looking up. Now, you see, you both really feel like this isn't some tomfoolery. I love that word, by the way, Steve. You used it earlier. You feel like it might be a legitimate video.
I think it is.
What I'm feeling here, I mean, you can't tell anymore. Say, just like the haunted stuff. You know, we've gotten to that point in just about everything now where if you see a picture, you can't, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a couple that I really believe for multiple reasons. That's one of them.
That one, because it's on multiple camera angles. I mean, I guess if you were going to the trouble to fake it, you would think of that. But you can see it on one camera coming down the walk there, going through a gate, and then another camera angle, you see it continue on till it kind of just fades out. But that one, I believe that it's legitimate.
Right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Sysco.
No, that's, and I'm saying, like, there's no way I could technically, because I just don't have that, I don't have that ability. I'm not technically inclined. I'm going on strict feeling. When I first saw it, I felt the way I felt when I saw it, that was real. Because then you could look into it and go, okay, it's Disney. You know, Disney could make anything they wanted and make it look anyway, you know, right down to the guy that stopped in the background. They could make anything they wanted, you know, but including following the old road, the path of the old road. I mean, that would just be typical to throw it in there. But I don't think it is. I really don't think it is. And I'll tell you another one I believe, and that's the Hampton ghost.
The what? You broke up there.
The Hampton Court ghost. Everybody calls him Skeletor. Have you seen that one?
I've seen that one. That
from Hampton Court.
That makes no sense. The doors open up on their own, and then the figure walks up. Right. There's nobody near those doors when they open.
Yeah, and there's a couple of other videos too, if you look online, because I was doing a lot of research on that one. I was having a guest that had just left there, and he is a highly, highly sensitive and talented medium. And I wanted to be ready to ask him the question. We were talking very much about this subject. And like I said, he had just left the week before. And I wanted to see what he felt about it without any prompting ahead of time. And he said, absolutely it is. Absolutely real. the way he felt when he was in there, he was on the other side of the doors looking out, and he said he felt the presence of that, let's say, specter. That it was an old monk, and he couldn't explain why the doors would burst open, but he said it was like the energy that this thing has, even after all this time, it was like it blew the doors open. I can't explain it, with the energy. And he's like, all right, those aren't supposed to be open. It wasn't anything sinister. He just like, bam. And he just reached out and closed them. And it just, that sends chills through my body. Anybody that hasn't seen it, Hampton Court Ghost, and you'll look at it and you'll look at the trim on the, I won't say costume, but the robe it's wearing.
Yep.
Trim and everything that's on that has gone through the costume designers, because there is plenty that goes on in the Hampton Court Palace. There's plenty of tours of every kind. And the costume designers there think that is so period and it's so right on. Just lots of multi-level reasons I think that's real.
You know what's not smart? Job sites that overwhelm you with tons of the wrong resumes. But you know what is smart? ZipRecruiter.com/FRAY. Unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't wait for candidates to find you. ZipRecruiter finds them for you. Its powerful matching technology scans thousands of resumes, identifies people with the right skills, education, and experience for your job, and actively invites them to apply. So, you get qualified candidates fast. No more sorting through the wrong resumes, no more waiting for the right candidates to apply. It's no wonder that ZipRecruiter is rated #1 by employers in the U.S., and this rating comes from hiring sites on Trustpilot with over 1,000 reviews. And right now, my listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/FRAY. That's ZipRecruiter.com/FRAY. ZipRecruiter.com/FRAY. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Okay, now this is off subject of Disney and things like this, but I want to ask you guys' opinion. If you've seen this video, it's a very famous video. They've even tried to recreate it on TV shows and such, but it is the, I think it's titled like Fresno Nightcrawler or Nightwalker.
Oh
yes. What do you guys think about that?
I think that is some sort of entity or something, because I've seen like Fact or Fake and some of those shows have tried to recreate it. But when you look at that yard in the daylight, it's actually a small space. It's smaller than it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do that, you would have to have, several puppeteers or some kind of animatronics or something. But that is just one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. I love that video.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually some kind of cryptid or something that we're either not familiar with or something that's paranormal.
Mm-hmm. It's just, it's creepy. And like I said, I have to go on feeling. Like, I've seen some great videos, but, I say this all the time, but, not too long ago, I watched Godzilla destroy New York, I mean, you can do whatever you want to do with CG. And, nowadays you don't need a Hollywood studio. I mean, people are doing it at home on their computers, quickly, very easily.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to basically go on feeling, and I know people want to get away from feeling, but we might be getting to the point where we need to kind of add that back, like you were talking earlier about the haunting of Hill House. There's been so many versions of this. Whoever wrote this really spent time to go back and show all these different aspects of the psychological involvement, the house itself having whatever reason, a built up energy that it just, there was a line in that movie, and it's not a spoiler or anything, but one of the people in it are looking back over what happened, and they kind of know that they're not quite done yet. And the man looks up and said, that house sees us as an unfinished meal. Chilling. because I've seen things like this in life, you know. And
I've been in places, houses, inanimate, non-sentient things that are evil. You can feel the evil energy around you and emanating from it.
And it feeds. I'm telling you, that farmhouse or something in that farmhouse that I lived in as a young child, it's one of the stories, one of the chapters in the book tells a little bit about it, but that, I don't know if it was the house or the land, but it would consume you. And I've seen time after time people that have come to me with issues or come to me with stories or, you know, going to help. The same type of thing. There are even human ghosts and other entities that actually look at us like a buffet. They're going to feed on that energy. They're going to feed on the fear. They're going to break up a family one at a time. It's got all the time in the world. Let's, you know, break. It's like a game, like it's just a horrible game of chess, you know, and it's got all the time in the world to just think about each play. And that's horrifying. That is horrifying because it happens. We've all heard the stories. We've all had experiences, you know, and sometimes these things do go deeper than just what you see on the surface.
I have a question to ask both of you. Sure. And this happened weeks ago, but I wanted to wait, and I think this is the right time and the right two people to ask this. And I really do think this was some sort of an electrical phenomena or something very explainable. However, excuse me, I was laying in bed and I was wide awake. I mean, I wasn't even really that tired yet, but the room is completely dark. And I hadn't even opened my phone yet. The only time I will utilize my Kindle is right before bed because I used to do this, but I don't do this anymore because the advent of Kindle allows you to just fall asleep and then your phone shuts off automatically and you're good to go. So you don't have to wake up, shut the light off, put the book down, blah, blah, blah. Even though I love real books. So I hadn't even yet opened my Kindle to wind down and get to sleep. And I audibly heard it was kind of a loud pop noise. It was very quick, like crack, pop. And then I saw a flash of light. And it lit up the whole room, like very quickly. And then it was done. Now, there was no... I'm kind of going, okay, well, one of the sockets just blew or a bulb went out and I got up, I checked every light bulb, everything's good, nothing blew. You know, the computer's fine. I turned that on. I couldn't quite figure out what was going on and there was no static electricity in the air that I could tell. However, I do know that, you know, you can't just be like, whoa, that was a paranormal activity, some kind of an event that went on. But it was kind of odd, and I didn't know if you guys have heard of anything like that. I didn't get any strange feelings. There was nothing ominous, but of course, I like to say that I am, and I'm not trying to make myself some kind of a martyr in the other way, but I'm literally the paranormal equivalent of bear spray. Like, I almost never get anything happening to me. So it was kind of cool that this happened, but I'm kind of like, well, you know, it could have been some kind of static discharge or something.
I'm getting the feeling that you did see something and you weren't sure that tied into it. And I'm not fishing here. I'm just saying what I'm feeling. That you saw something or got... Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you saw something like, you said the Kindle, like maybe the page that it was on and your eyes fell on a line, or another book, or something in your room and you thought, nah. You know what I mean? Did you get anything like that?
I don't even think I opened the Kindle yet, but I was working at the time on Stephen King's Salem's Lot. So there you go.
Okay.
It wasn't open yet.
There was something and you were going, nah, that's not.
You know what it was?
Yeah.
The light part. The pop was quick,
was
but then the light went but the light lasted longer than I thought something like that should last. And like I said, I really was going, okay, well, gosh, a bulb popped or something. I got to get up and check this. I mean, but it was so bright that I wasn't sure if it was inside or outside, even though if it was outside, it should translate that way. You know, you should be like, oh, there's a car, even though headlights wouldn't touch the window that I'm, you know, sleeping in. So anyhow, I don't know. That
wouldn't account for the pop either.
Right. It was audible. Very audible.
Tells me that it was a manifestation of some sort. It could have been, it could have been your own energy. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it was something else, but it was something you looked at and went, nah. You know, maybe it was because you were working on Salem's Lot and you were thinking kind of the back of your head somewhere. I don't know. It could very well be because you have
kind of winding down there, so it could have been like a release of some sort of energy from you. But then there's other explanations. Like you said, it could have been a static charge. It could have been, a transformer, something sent a power surge. But if you didn't find any electronics fried or didn't throw any breakers, then it's unlikely that it was anything electric to do with your house. But I lived in a house back in Tennessee that had a lot of strange activity. And I had one hallway I could stand and look down the dark hallway, and I would see little flashes of light, almost like a tiny flash bulb go off. And sometimes there'd be like maybe a little sizzle with that, but there was nothing down there. There was nothing electronic. There was no vents, nothing. And the other side of that wall was the outside of the house. And there was not even any wiring or anything in that wall. It was just a dead wall. So I don't know how to account for that. I saw that on several occasions and at different levels. Sometimes it would be down near the floor. Other times it would be up near the ceiling. But just a very bright, very intense, almost like a pinpoint. And you could see it kind of burst out, and then it was just gone.
Wow.
But no clue.
See, that's a
lot of weird
really...
things going in that house. So.
Yeah, that's a close description of what I saw. And I got the sense it was kind of like above my head. And I'm like, that like lit up the room, but I got the sense it was very close to me. So very interesting. I just want to get you guys' take on it.
The only thing I've ever seen in nature similar to that is ball lightning. If you've ever seen ball lightning.
Yeah, that's a little bit different. I don't know. There's so many things with lights, but the thing that got me with you is when you said the pop crackle.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear this?
Yeah.
Okay. That sound is about the closest I can get to telling you that through my lifetime and from other people. That's why I love doing this podcast so much, because I'll hear people telling a story and tell me everything you were hearing and seeing and feeling at the time. And that crackle comes through a lot. And I've had that happen probably 6 times in my lifetime. And then it's usually followed by sparkles. I've had most of the time it's very much like the sparkles on the outside of a sparkler. Not the ones close by, but the ones that are far off.
Right.
Almost like fireflies coming together. And then you start getting that manifestation. They all start coming together, And then sometimes it's an apparition. Sometimes it's a full apparition. Sometimes it's just... In fact, the very first thing I can fully remember ever happening to me as a child started with that crackle. And I don't know if I've ever told you that story. Do you want to hear it?
Yes, please.
It had to be one of the craziest. Now I can look back and understand it a little more. And that's 45 years of time. So I still say, I don't know, but I can understand it a little better. Okay. I was put in for a nap and I was on my mother's and father's bed. I guess I had fallen asleep and they put me into the nearest bedroom. And that bedroom happened to be right off the living room on a split level house. And my room was somewhere upstairs. So I guess they just put me in there. Now I'm in the middle of the bed and they had at the time what you call a chenille bedspread. Now this was a bedspread that had like a pattern on it, but it was raised off of the top of the bedspread. So when you fell asleep on it, you would always have these like pock marks on your face from the pattern.
Had those grown up in my house too. I know exactly.
So at my age, you kind of know about that because it was always funny. You'd have these like pock marks on your face from the chenille, like this pattern of a flower or something. But I remember being asleep and I heard that crackle, 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 pop, crackle, crackle, pop. Like somebody was messing with a water bottle. We didn't have water bottles back then, you know? So I'm hearing this, and I remember it woke me up, and I sat up, and I remember feeling my face because it just felt funny. And as I'm sitting up, I'm facing my mother's closet, and this was an old colonial house, so she had those shutters with the slats in it, and you would open them up and they would fold up kind of shutters. And I'm looking toward the closet, and I'm thinking, I actually remember thinking there's somebody in that closet messing with my mother's clothes. I don't know why I thought that, but I did. And I'm still looking at it, and I'm hearing the crackle, and then I see the sparkle. And the light is actually a little bit coming out from underneath the space in the door from the closet. And I sit up more to look at it because I'm thinking, what's going on? And the crackle's getting louder. Crackle, pop, crackle, pop, crackle, pop. They're coming faster together. And the light is moving up and branching and spreading out. So it's coming through the slats of the door. And I remember seeing that in a movie, probably around being a teenager, and it just took me right back because it was this light coming out of this door, and it took, you know, like a smell. It took me right back to that memory, and I was just as scared then as I was when it was happening. So this light is growing behind these doors, and the crackle pops seem to go away as the light got brighter, and now it's pushing through the slats. And then all of a sudden, the light kind of came together in front of the door and starts coming at me. Now it's this big ball of, just like somebody shining if you've ever had police officers pull you over and they shine that spotlight in your face, it was that bright. And I'm just leaned back, sitting in the middle of this big old bed, and this light's coming towards me. And all of a sudden, color starts forming in the center of this light, like a mix of colors. And then it makes a face, and it's still coming at me. Now there's a face, and I can see it. And I remember, just like I'm looking at it right now, it was a young man, like a very weathered 20-year-old, 25-year-old, or a 30-year-old man. He's got stubble on his face. He had a very distinctive mustache. He had dirty brown hair, and it was pulled, you know, messily together in a ponytail behind his head. His eyes were closed as he came at me, and his head was getting bigger as it came toward me. And right when it got like almost right in front of me, now I'm leaning back, almost face to face with me, I realized it's just a head. And it wasn't like a head that was chopped off with all kind of gore and stuff like that. It just faded. You know, the neck just faded, you know, and that's all it was, is his head. But zooming at me, and the ponytail is kind of flipping behind him like it's rushing with the wind.
Wow.
And a red ribbon, like holding his ponytail together, this red, dirty red ribbon. And right as he got almost right above me, I'm leaning back, and he got right in front of me, and his eyes opened, and this, like, I want to say his eyes were red, but they weren't. It wasn't red eyes. It was like a light, like an energy that came out of his eyes, almost like anger. Now I see it as he was angry. But it just startled me so much. And at the same time he did that, his jaw dropped open like he was going to scream, but no sound came out. And I threw myself back, and I watched it fly over me and went right into the wall behind me and disappeared into my mother's velvet fleur-de-lis wallpaper.
Oh my God.
And it was gone. And I saw that ponytail, and that red ribbon was the last thing I saw go through and I just started screaming. Now, the kicker to this, as if that's not enough. I mean, I just fell back because I thought it was going to go through me. I'm screaming, and I'm kicking, and I mean, I just remember my arms and legs I'm in a fit. The bedroom door busts open, and it's my mom and one of my sisters, and they scoop me up, and they're talking amongst themselves. Oh, she had a nightmare, and all this other rambling going on, and I'm losing it. She had a nightmare. She had a nightmare. And I just keep repeating over and over. Red eyes, red ribbon. Red eyes, red ribbon. Red. That's all I could say. Because his eyes matched the ribbon. And my little kid self, you see what I'm saying? They're blowing it off, and they set me down on the couch, and she had a nightmare, and one of them went to go get me go get her a cookie or something. I don't know what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in time, when the other sister went to go get me something, I hear my sister say behind me to my mother, "Red eyes, red ribbon, Mom."
Oh, my God.
Just like I saw. Bam.
Wow.
She'd seen it too.
And that's interesting about the eyes. It kind of had like a discharge of energy. Like that was its last ditch effort. And it's like, okay, well, here I am, but now I'm going to fade out. Now I've built up to this, and now it's kind of done. Except your sister saw it too. So obviously it went through the wall, and she saw it enough to describe exactly the same thing. Holy cow.
Red eyes, red ribbon. Like he had shown up before. And now I've learned a little bit. And of course, none of this is scientific or anything else. It's just experience and putting together other people's stories and things like that. Was maybe he just had enough energy to manifest that much.
Yeah.
And used all of it because, like I said, I wasn't even hearing the scream. And I could tell he was screaming because it was just his whole facial features were doing that too. But now we had seen him in other times in full apparition where he was a little calmer. I don't know. I heard a similar story recently from Mark Nesbitt out of Gettysburg. He's been in this for a long time, and I trust his views too. And he told a story that happened there in one of now the bed and breakfast. And at 1:00 in the morning, a man was sleeping in one of the rooms. And a man came to him very much like mine. And he only appeared from the waist up. But once the guy got scared and was screaming, like, "What are you doing in my room? Who are you?" And he's just screaming. The guy's just standing there, half a body. And he actually described him to the hotel owner. And the hotel owner pulled out a picture and showed it to me. And he said, "Is this him?" He said, "Yes."
No,
and it happened
boy.
to be a guy who used to own it. But what happened an hour later, Shannon, is the next guy 3 rooms down sees the same guy, but now he's in full apparition. So did he get enough energy from the fear from the other guy to manifest fully? See what I'm saying? That's wild.
Makes you wonder.
Well, and
Sysco, is that the farmhouse that dated back to the Revolutionary War?
Yes.
Okay. And I don't know if you know this or not, but the hairstyle that you mentioned, the longer hair pulled back and tied with a ribbon, that's period. That's a popular men's hairstyle during the Revolutionary War period. Mm-hmm. If you look at the old photographs, the old paintings and things, Paul Revere and people like that, you'll see them with a little tiny ponytail in the back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was.
That kind of goes along with that. And then you talked about the light up in the doorway. There's a famous artist, Joe Coleman, joecoleman.com, if you want to look at any of his paintings. It's incredible stuff. He paints all this really weird stuff and serial killers and things. He talked about when he would have these like paranormal visitations, that's the same way it would start. He would see just a thin light like coming through the top of the door between the gap of the frame, of the door and the frame there in his room, and it would get brighter and brighter till it just kind of spread out, and then it was gone. And he kind of thinks it may be because of some of the subjects that he paints and stuff that he draws this negative energy to him and then transfers it to the canvas. If you take a look at his artwork, it's amazing. joecoleman.com. That's not an endorsement or anything, just something that I find amazing. And another thing, Shannon, I wanted to point out, I think you're an empath, whether you realize it or maybe don't want to admit it for whatever reason. And I don't want to put you on the spot there, but you are empathic. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of times that's why things happen and things occur, because Sysco and I both have those abilities, and it's.
Yes, you do, but how do I open my side of it? I honestly would like to. I mean, I talk about this stuff every day. I read about this every day. I'm obsessed with it, but I really do feel like it's kind of an inside joke. that's outside now, but I'm the paranormal equivalent of bear spray. I almost never have anything interesting happen to me. That's why when the light and the pop, I'm like, well, and not that I'm trying to automatically go.
It's paranormal. I mean, there's different levels of empathy there. Have you been to the Zach Bagans museum there in Las Vegas? My daughter went there last summer, and when she walked into the room where they have Dr. Kevorkian's death van, she said just the sheer emotions coming out of that vehicle hit her like a freight train, and she had to go outside. She just couldn't handle it. And she said it wasn't a fear, it wasn't anything scary, but it was just the emotion, the pain and suffering that had been released in that van. People, wanting to die, that it's still there, and it manifested enough to knock her flat. She's empathic like I am. I'm the same way. I can walk through a room, or if I go to, say, a rehab center or nursing home, it's like everybody in there is trying to pull something from me. Unconsciously. I mean, they don't even realize they're doing it. There are people, though, that are like psychic vampires almost. Said some of them have no idea, but they're trying to pull something from you. And then there are people that do it like with an evil intent, that want to draw that energy off of you and for whatever nefarious purposes. But you've got that empathic ability, and sometimes you see things and experience things and hear things. That was what my grandmother, the gypsy witch, self-proclaimed, told me when I was little. She said, you feel things. And that particular time she was talking about, on the way to her house, we passed a curve in the road where a kid had ran out chasing a softball and got hit by a car and killed. I felt the spot when we drove by there. God. And then I get to my grandmother's house, and she said, you feel things, don't you? And I said, like what, Granny? And she said, like that spot on the highway. And then, I'm like 8 years old, and I'm about to soil myself because I hadn't mentioned it to anybody. I didn't say anything to my parents. I didn't say anything to her, but she knew. And I was just like, so, but that's kind of the way things go. And that's like the seeing of lights and things. That's one of my earliest memories, is my dad holding me in a rocking chair. So that gives you an idea how small I was. And the way our house was set up, we had what was called the good living room. And you didn't go in there. That was for when company came over and stuff. That was, the nice furniture and stuff. And then we had our den in the next part of the house. Well, we were in the den, and he was facing toward the television. I was looking back over his shoulder into the good living room, and I saw these little lights about the size of fireflies all in that room. I mean, they were different colors. They were blue and red and green. They would flash on and off. And I was giggling at him, and he's like, what's funny? And I'm like, oh, don't you see all these lights? And he didn't see a thing. So, at first you things like that, it makes you think, am I crazy? Do I have a brain tumor? But, the more and more it happens, the more you get used to it, and you understand that it may not have any particular meaning to anybody other than yourself. And as my grandmother would say, it's just letting you know that you're different, and that you see things and you experience things that other people don't. And everything doesn't have to be a sign or a warning or a portent, even though those things do happen. But sometimes things just happen.
When Sysco was talking about the head, the flying head, and that was all he had to muster. That was all the energy he could come up with. And she said, I knew he was screaming, but I couldn't hear it. His mouth was open in a scream. It reminds me of Fox Hollow Farm, right? Serial killer, her Baumeister. I went out there. Now, nothing personally happened to me, but Vicky Graves is Vicky and Rob actually live there now, and she was the one that saw the man with quote-unquote no legs in the red shirt walking into the woods. And I think that Joe LeBlanc also saw that person, and it wasn't so much that tied in directly with the murders, and, Herb wasn't someone that was like chopping him up and, we found a body and his legs were over here.
He just couldn't manifest
He
anymore.
couldn't get it all out. Yes, exactly.
Right.
So when you said that, I'm like, that just really, that rings true to a lot of cases.
Yes, it does. And I remember hearing the same thing when I heard the story about that, and I felt so sorry for him, because I honestly believe that that was one of the victims.
Yes.
But, you know, they don't realize how much they're manifesting. In some cases, I mean, again, we're putting ghosts in one category here. You got to take each one as an individual. You know, they might not care. They might not even realize they're manifesting at this point, or whether or not you can see them or not see them. You know, in this case, with the head, and I will call him the Revolutionary War soldier, because later on people did see him in his uniform, you know, in various states of uniform. Sometimes he has a jacket on, sometimes he has a jacket off, which is wild, because that also told me that it wasn't some like residual thing. He was really interacting, you know. But as far as the young man that was walking into the woods, it was almost like he wanted them to follow him.
Yes.
To possibly a grave.
Well, and there were so many bones on the property that
Exactly.
it likely was. And that goes against the whole it's a residual thing. And he's just replaying and replaying and replaying, because we know that he probably wouldn't have been able to walk away from that place, because most of the killing happened very, very close to the property, closer than where he was, or on the property in the pool. So there you go.
Yeah.
I don't know about you all, but to me, a partial apparition is 10 times more frightening than a full body apparition.
Yeah.
There's a story about a Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, which, if you're not familiar, that's where Floyd Collins died. It was a big national story, I think back in the 20s or 30s. He was exploring the cave and got trapped by a rock slide. And he was alive, and they could get to him, but they couldn't get him out. And they weren't able to get him out until after he was dead. But they've seen the apparition of a pair of legs there running down a hillside, just the legs from about the thigh down. That would scare me out of my mind.
Yeah. Like he was free. Whatever part of him could get free got free, right? And he's finally
running. And there's also
the rest
a hotel in Gatlinburg,
exactly.
The Rocky Top Inn, where some people were just brutally murdered back in the 70s or 80s. And they've seen ladies' legs from about the knee down wearing heels run across the parking lot.
Oh, God, no.
That's so
blows my mind.
I thought was cute. Well, it's kind of cute, but to me, this ghost knew what he was doing, too. And I don't know if, like I said earlier, I don't know if they realize how much of them you're seeing, or whether they care how much of them you're seeing,
or how much it terrifies you.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe some of them do have that ability. Hey, this really creeps them out. Watch this. You know, I don't know. Possibly some of them do, and thumbs up to them, because if if they've got that down, good for them. If that's what they're going to do, might as well do it right. But there was 2 kids. It was in Gettysburg, and it was on the battlefield. And it was odd. If they were going to make it up, they would have said a different kind of boots. But they're on this one gravel road, and I've walked that gravel road, and it's quite creepy. And on this, it has a little gravel, and then it goes into just dirt. And they were still on the part that had the gravel. And it was getting dark, and they were, of course, doing their ghost investigation. They were doing pictures and everything else, and then when it happened, nothing would work, because the thing is trying to draw so much energy, none of their equipment would work. But they hear footsteps, and one of them says to another, "Hey, do you hear that?" And he says, "Yes, I hear. It sounds like somebody's walking on the dirt path." And then they could hear it coming closer to them, and it actually changed sound when it went from the dirt to the gravel. Okay, and then all of a sudden, they start to see the gravel move, and then 2 shoes, actually cowboy boots, appeared as they're walking towards them. It stopped right in front of them for just a second, and they just see the cowboy boots, no legs, no apparition. And then one of them kind of like moved like it was putting out a cigarette or something, and then disappeared. Now, what was that? I'm guessing there was a full body in those boots. And it was cowboy boots. If they made it up, I would say, okay, well, it was an old pair of, Civil War shoes that they wore back in. No, it was cowboy boots. But that's crazy. Pretty cool, though.
You know, and that puts me in the mind of my story about the thing that came out of the ditch after me that Shannon had asked me to retell. That I was a kid. We had 26 acres. I was out prowling around in the woods, and I walked up to the edge of this ditch, just looking. It found out later that ditch had been a dirt road during Revolution, dating back to the Revolutionary War. And I turned around to walk away. Something came up out of the ditch right over the lip where I'd just been standing and ran directly at me. I couldn't see anything, but the leaves that it was running, it was like somebody running in the leaves and not picking their feet up, but just kind of like kicking the leaves because there was a lot of leaves there. And it was bipedal. You could tell that there was 2 feet coming right at. It scared me out of my mind. I ran back to the house screaming. I screamed so much that my mom had actually heard me in the house and was out on the back porch when I came tearing down the hill. And I just didn't even stop. I passed her and went inside. I think I went and hid under the bed or something. No idea what that was. And then I went back. I was about 8 that time that it happened. And went back, well, prior to that, after that initial happening there, I had friends that went up there and looked, couldn't find anything. It didn't bother them. My dad and my brother, that evening that it happened, went up there and looked around. They could see where the leaves had been disturbed, but no sign of anything or what. Well, years later, I was like 15 at this time, and decided to go back up there. And I was thinking, something scared me when I was a kid, but I was little. I was only 8. That's been 7 years ago, and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm looking around, same area, almost exact same circumstance. I looked down in the ditch, didn't see anything, turned, walk away, got a few steps, and I heard that same noise. And this time I heard it before I actually saw it. It was already running or whatever it was doing before it came up over the lip of the ditch. And I didn't stick around that time either. I don't think I screamed that time, but I ran like I was on fire. And no idea what that was, except flash forward about another 6 years. I was working at a fast food restaurant in West Knoxville. A guy that I worked with invited me to a party after work. And I didn't know this guy well enough. It wasn't anybody that I'd ever swapped stories with or anything. So I went to this party. The only person I knew was him. Didn't even know him that well. Well, there's some girls had found a Ouija board under the couch. So they got it out and decided to play with it. There's 3 girls there working the Ouija. And they're going around the room asking people stuff. And, it's typical teenage, who will I marry? Will I have money? Blah, blah, blah. Well, they got to me and they're like, what about you? And I said, okay, I've got one for you. What scared me when I was a kid? And that was all I said. I didn't give them any other information. Didn't know any of these people, never saw them before or since. The Ouija board spells out, and I'll never forget this because it did it very slowly, very deliberately, W-A-T-E-R, pause, sprite, S-P-R-I-T-E. And they're like, water sprite. And I'm like, okay, does that mean anything to you? And I'm like, no. And they were like, does the Ouija board want a drink? Does it want some water? Does it want a Sprite? Ha, ha, ha. Well, the next day, and this was pre-internet, I went to the library and asked the reference librarian if she could find anything on a water Sprite, because I kind of had an idea what it was, even though I didn't really know. Well, she brings this book of fairy lore and stuff, and there is a spirit that's an elemental that's known as a water sprite, also known as a dryad, and it guards things in the forest, and it's usually near water. Well, the property that we lived on was unique. It had 7 springs that all fed into one that ran into the lake. So, and there was also a legend of buried treasure on that property that I looked for constantly when I was a kid, but it always made me wonder, was I actually close to where there was something hidden and this was an elemental spirit that was protecting it, or was it just an elemental that didn't like me being near its place in the woods?
Steve, would that be tied into the Fae at all?
Yeah, it's considered Fae.
The same thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. The Fae, it's
yeah.
six of one, half dozen of the other.
There's more things.
Right.
There's more things in heaven and earth, Horatio.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I say when people, none of that exists. I'm really okay. you know how to get people like that. You just tell them. You basically say, "Oh, really? What's that standing behind you?" And every time they jump. So it's just like that, Look, there's things that are ancient that have been here long before we came, and will be here long after, and you can't explain it. But my gosh, there's things, there's things in the woods. There's things that take our energy, that want to take you for whatever reason. Look at all the disappearing people, and not all of it can be the government.
That goes back in the lore of the Fae. The fairy people, they would steal babies and leave things in their place because they needed that human baby to make half fairy babies, I guess, or whatever, to continue their bloodline, because they were little and weak and humans were big and strong, but they had powers that we didn't. So it's, and I got a story sent to me the other day that I'd like to share.
This is good. Yeah.
This was a lady that was an older lady. She was hanging out her laundry, and this happened some time ago. But the person that told me the story had heard the story directly from her, and said that she was a very, well-behaved, religious type lady, not one given to drink or drug or making up wild stories. But one day she was hanging out her laundry, and she saw something out of the corner of her eye come out of near a wood pile or from behind a wood pile, and started walking toward her. She turned and looked at it, and she said she absolutely froze, shock and fright. It was about 3 feet away, and it was some sort of creature about chest high to her. So I don't know how tall the lady was. I'm guessing 3 or 4 feet tall the creature was. Said it was bone white, completely white. It had long, stringy hair that went all the way to the ground so that you couldn't see its legs. But the kicker was it had some kind of weird head. She said its face was long and resembled an armadillo, but it had ears like a human and eyes like a human. That she said the eyes were very beautiful and very kind looking, but they were like albino eyes. They were reddish. And so when she locked eye contact with it, it went flat as one of the sheets she was hanging up. She said it just hit the ground, but she could still see the eyes.
Oh.
And she never broke eye contact with it, but she backed away slowly and went into the house. When she had recovered, she went back out and it was gone. No further sign of it or anything. What on earth would that have been?
Yeah, what do you label that?
She's describing a creature that doesn't exist, but there it was. And the only other thing, she said that the very same night that had happened, her baby woke her up at 1 a.m. She got up to feed the baby, and she went to the other end of the house to get the milk or something. And she noticed that on that end of the house, outside, it was as bright as daylight. She could see the trees. She could see the grass. And that kind of freaked her out. So she just got the baby's milk and went back to the other end of the house. She said she was too scared after what had happened earlier in the day to even go outside and look to see what was lighting up the outside. And when I heard that part of the story, I thought, well, that's, like a classic UFO type thing with the lights outside. And the gentleman that told me the story, he had actually mentioned that to her, but she didn't believe in UFOs or anything like that. So that didn't sit well with her. But sounds like some sort of extraterrestrial or extra dimensional creature visited, and then the light especially sounds like a classic UFO encounter.
These days, you can get practically everything on demand. Just like Into the Fray. Listen whenever you want, when it's convenient for you. But did you know you can even get postage on demand? All you need is Stamps.com. With Stamps.com, you can access all the services of the post office right from your desk. Buy and print real U.S. postage for any letter or any package. Just click, print, mail, and you're done. Stamps.com will even send you a digital scale. You can weigh your letters and packages and print the exact amount of postage every time. I use Stamps.com each and every week, right from my home office. Right now, use FRAY for this special offer. It's a 4-week trial. It includes postage and a digital scale. So don't wait. Go to Stamps.com before you do anything else. Click on the radio microphone at the top of the homepage and type in FRAY. That's Stamps.com. Enter FRAY. Or if you talk about the Fae, I mean, all of these things, if you really start looking, they tie in together.
Mm-hmm. I think they do. And, you know, you can look about it in any culture, you know, from, you know, the fairies in New Zealand where they won't move the rock to build the road to go around it, to Pugwudgies, Native Americans all across, you know, North America, all the way through Hawaii. You've got the little people there. So, I mean, they all can't be just legend, you know, if you think about it. And now we're getting giants stories. So I just don't know. And you can look at this in so many different angles. You could say, you know, gosh, we don't know what's going on in other dimensions. I mean, I just did this whole big thing on Tesla. It's amazing the different dimensions. And once you start getting, it can all be just so confusing and just wonderful at the same time. But how much do we really know? I mean, we're really a blink in existence. 100 years ago really wasn't that long ago. 200 years ago, that's just a couple of people. You know, my son always says, that's just a couple of people ago.
Yep.
If you think about it, it's really true. And, you know, we look into all these things of ghosts and haunted houses and energy, and it just amazes me so much. Like, if you go back to the farmhouse that we were in, that was 160 years old when we moved into it. It's surrounded by, in New Jersey, multiple battles in the Revolutionary War. You wonder, what was he doing there? Was he hiding? Was he shot in the property? Was he part of it? I don't know, but he was always one of the things that make me look back and be so interested in this and trying to understand, because I never got to help that one.
All right.
You know,
right.
A lot of people would look back and go, I'm so scared of it. But I took it on a different level, because it took me, in some cases, 20 years to hear the stories of the rest of the family members. And again, we have this house. We had my father, who was a World War II veteran. And at that time, now you would call it PTSD. Then you would call it shell shock. He liked to drink a lot. He got very violent and angry when he drank. He liked things his way. The violent outbursts from him seemed to get worse when we were in that house. Was it an energy that he woke up because of his nature, because of his energy? Did it wake something up in him? We've got a lot of questions there you can look at. You know, there was a lot of turmoil in that household. But when we left that house, we left it. And I mean, there was a situation where, like in Amityville, like everybody tore out of that house, threw things in cars, and took off, you know. And I never really got the reason why. Nobody will tell me what was it that made us flee like that. We literally fled. I took off with my mom. My older sisters took off in their direction. Everybody had a different place to go. And because things were like they were back then, it wasn't like you had the internet. You could talk to people every day. It was letters. It was Christmas cards. It was birthday. You know, it was weird. And when we all finally got together and I started getting people's stories, I was able to put pieces together to this puzzle. And this one night, and this will give you a little idea. I'm watching the time here. I don't know if you have time for this story, but it's a great ghost story. I was 3, 4. And because of my dad, and because of fights in the middle of the night where there would be a lot of ruckus going on, and, you know, he might have been throwing stuff and yelling and screaming, people often woke up in the middle of the night and ran out to see what was going on. What was the commotion tonight? And every single one of my sisters and my older brother, they were all teenagers at the time, they would always have their go-to weapon. You know, like one would grab a shoe, one would grab her golf club because she was a golfer. And, you know, everybody would show up in the hallway and kind of bump into each other and go, where's the noise coming from? Well, this one night that happened. And I remember somebody had scooped me up. I was on somebody's hip. I was, like I said, 3 or 4 years old. And I had a good eye view of what was going on. And then I heard the screaming, and it's coming from the other side of a locked door where my sister's room was. And she's screaming, there is a man in my room. There's a man in my room. And she's just blood curdling screaming. And we knew my father was part of it because he comes running up, you know, his part of the stairs, and he's there. So now everybody's in their PJs, and we're trying to yell at my sister, unlock the door. The door's locked. And my father and my brother are trying, and they're throwing their weight against the door, and he's screaming. Everybody's talking at the same time. Unlock the door. We can't open the door. And it's a big farmhouse door. These doors meant business. They were the big locks that you had to put the skeleton key in to unlock it. You could look through the keyhole. And I remember somebody trying to look in there, and you could hear this rustling going on. Now, earlier in the evening, before I was put to bed, often I was tossed around by, you know, different sisters that would put me to bed. And there was a report being done, and I remember they were passing around this typewriter that they were doing. Everybody had to share a typewriter, which was crazy, right, back in the day. And they all had a report due the next day. And my sister was all proud because she had had hers done. And she took this report and she set it on top of her dresser. And above her dresser was this mirror. And I remember I was toddling in there to bug her to try to like stall for not going to bed. And she started putting this stuff on her face that we call, it was Noxema. And everybody was like a cold cream. And you put it all over your face and then you go wash it off. And I remember I was tugging on her and going, can I get a story? Can I get a story? She goes, no, it's late. You got to go to bed. And she gave me a little dab of Noxema on my nose. And then I said, I wanted more. And she said, no. And she puts the lid on it. And she sets it up on top of the report up against far away where I couldn't reach it, up against the mirror of this dresser. And then she took me into the bathroom and she was singing me a song. We washed our faces and I went to bed. Now that was the last time I saw her and that door. Now she's on the other side of this screaming. All of a sudden, she must have jumped up out of bed and rushed toward the door, and she unlocked it because the door busted open and I could see her jump back in bed and pull the covers up over her head. And she's like right up against her face and she's pointing. She's going, there's a man. Everybody kind of falls in like just, you know, like an old movie or something. Everybody kind of falls through the door. And I went with my sister who had a hold of me. And I could see as I come around the door, everybody is gathered around this dresser. Now, there are papers all over the bedroom. Some of them are balled up. Some of them are ripped up. There is a paper stuck on the mirror, I guess with Noxema. There's Noxema smeared all over. It's a white heavy cream all over the mirror and all over the dresser. And I don't know where the jar was. And she's just still in the bed screaming. And a couple sisters went to her. And my dad and my brother are basically trying to look down and see what's going on. One of them goes to the window. The window was locked. We're on the 3rd floor. The window was locked. The other one went to the closet, opens the closet door, you know, like we're going to beat up whoever's in this room. And then somebody realizes that in the cream, in that Noxema cream on the mirror, there's a big handprint right in the center. Now, my dad starts yelling at my sister, going, what did you do? What are you trying to pull? There's a lot of noise going on. And I'm in the middle of this looking what's going on. And she's crying. And there's just so much commotion. I remember then somebody saying, nobody got up here. The window's locked from the inside. The bedroom door was locked. And my dad said to my sister, you put your handprint there. My brother went up, held his hand up and goes, no, Dad. It's bigger than mine. It couldn't have been her.
Oh.
Now, my dad, I guess, are commiserate. Now they're getting to be detectives. And they said somebody climbed up the rose trellis. And I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but it's basically lattice with a rose climbing up it. Mm-hmm. Thinking who could climb up that, you know, now. But then I'm just like all excited. What's going on? And I guess they figured they were going to go downstairs and see. They were going to catch the culprit, you know. So they ran that way, gonna go get flashlights and stuff. And my sister looks out the window and goes, "It snowed. There's got to be footprints. I bet he's in the barn." Well, all this commotion keeps up. We're sitting on the bed. My mom's trying to calm my sister, and she's saying there was a man. He was in a uniform. He was standing there by my closet. He was angry and he was yelling. And my one sister asked her, what was he? She would tell us. My brother and father finally come back up the stairs, and we figure they've got to solve, right? They come in. There's no footprints in the snow. My dad said, "I've had enough of this nonsense." He goes and leaves it to the women to handle. And we just calmed her down, and that was it. That's all you heard about the story. Now, flash 25 years later, I'm at a family reunion, and I get to hear the rest of this story. And they're talking a little bit about everything in the old farmhouse. And somebody says, "Does anybody remember the ghost?" And I sat right up, and I'm like, "Hell yes, I do. Here we go. Here it comes." And everybody starts telling their little stories of how they saw him in different ways, different things that they saw him doing. And this comes out. My brother says, "Do you remember the pantry that mom had dad build?" And I said, "Yeah, I do remember that. Why? What's up?" And he said, "They all got quiet. Some left the room. Nobody wanted to hear the nonsense. That shit still continuing on. Sorry, I didn't mean to cuss. It's so aggravating." And my brother looks at me. He called me Cricket. He said, "Cricket, you're not going to believe this." He said, our dad got mad because mom kept pestering him to build that pantry. So he goes in there with a sledgehammer and starts knocking down walls. There was a hidden room behind the wall in the kitchen that led to a little like an extended room that they had blocked off. And inside the room, they found papers, a couple of metal things. He said old antique things. I'm like, what does that even mean? And some papers. And my dad handed them to my brother and told him to throw it on the bonfire where everything was being burned that they were tearing down the wall with. And my brother just did it. So we'll never know. And I said, "Well, what kind of papers were they?" He goes, "You know how dad was when he got drunk. You didn't bring up anything. You just did what he told you to do." He said, "I feel bad I did it now, but then I was just doing what I was told to do." And he said, in the letters, some of the papers put together, tied together with, guess, a red ribbon.
Wow.
What?
He never heard from me about the ponytail story. I wasn't allowed to hear stories. And I'm grabbing my head going, "You've got to be out of your mind. You burnt this stuff." Well, you couldn't blame him. He was a 17-year-old kid.
Right.
My dad was drunk. He was doing something he didn't want to do. And then he felt sorry because he said, "Dad was never into history." I said, "Mom ever knew that, he'd have killed him," because she was really into history. And he goes, "But wait," he said, "maybe this will make you feel better." And I said, "What?" I said, did you save something? Did you, he's like, "No, I wish I had." He goes, "No, but there was a staircase that went from that room, an old servant's staircase that went from that room up the stairs to the back of that closet in my sister's room where she always saw him standing." Now you tell me that's not connected.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
So to me, this was a young soldier, for whatever reason, either wanted that stuff found, wanted his story told, wanted help, looked for all the different ways to try to get help, attention. And that night, he had manifested enough energy to say, basically, if I tear this up, if I make this, and show my handprint, maybe somebody will do something. And we walked away and we left him there, and they tore that place down.
Wow.
And now it's development. And now somebody's got a brand new house sitting on that land, and probably got.
And wouldn't you love to talk to them?
You bet I would.
No.
I would.
I've got a challenge for your listeners there, Shannon. If you live in that part of New Jersey, go into your bathroom, shut the door, turn out the lights, stare into the mirror and say, red eyes, red ribbon, red eyes.
Yeah, just
red
like
ribbon.
Bloody Mary,
Chant
right?
that over and over. Yeah, and see if
let's
you
be
see any-
specific, though.
Yeah, right.
Where can we be specific on this, Sysco? I mean, if we're going to put that call out.
Jackson, New Jersey.
Okay.
Jackson, New Jersey, and it was off of Highway 526. There's a lot of old farm country there, but now, like,
try and see if you can make him manifest. Could happen anywhere. Red eyes, red ribbon.
I've talked to people that have tried to pick them, to focus on that, because if I could help that guy, and I think I've been trying to help him ever since. That's why I do what I do with the kind of heart that I do it with. I look at it different than other people do, because I'm kind of thinking, man, maybe that's the only thing they can do. Maybe that's the only way they can get attention. And it just makes me feel so bad that I wasn't able to help them. And, so maybe, just like Steve's little kid that he saw fall in the ground that time, we've been digging ever since, trying to find out how do we help.
Yeah, I actually went and dug to see if there was a cave or a hole or something there. Found nothing.
It's just, it's a wondrous subject, and if depending on how you look at it, and what's happening to you personally, it can be extremely scary. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't like heads flying at me, but if you think of it, if it is a human spirit, for whatever reason got stuck or chose to stay or whatever, confused, it really gets to me. Here's something a lot of people don't think about too, that'll really tug at your heartstrings. A lot of people think that cemeteries are the battlefields are the things that are most haunted. Do you know what the number one most haunted place is?
What's that?
Car junkyards. Because
the reason, I guess.
In an accident, I'm not saying all people, but in some cases get stunned and they're just attached to that vehicle trying to figure what happened.
Because it's tragic, it's instant.
Yes.
Whereas, say, people in a hospital, a lot of those people know they're going to die. They know they're not going to come out of there.
Yeah.
Whereas a car crash or something, you're just driving down the road, mind your own business, boom, head-on wreck, and you're there, and then you're not.
And that's to say that everybody in a car accident is going to get stuck there. That's not. I mean, it's in the great scheme of things, it's very rare. But people do get attached to objects, and to me, that's really sad. Because then, what happens if they destroy the car? What happens then?
Yeah.
Do they wander off
junkyard?
Yeah.
So
it's almost like the James Dean curse. After his crash, they parted out the car, and guy that bought the wheels or the tires or something off of it, he was a doctor who raced cars as a hobby. He crashed and died. And then the remains of the car, they were sending it on tour. It fell off the car jack or something and crushed the guy. I don't think it killed him, but it messed him up. And then the car disappeared on a train somewhere between wherever it was in Florida. I think it's LA and Florida. And nobody knows where it's at to this day.
Yeah, an aircraft did the same thing. They used to part things out. Yes, they used to part things out, and every single part that plane went on, and now it wasn't always bad. Sometimes the crew would come back and actually warn people of things and kind of say, hey, something's going to go bad. You don't need to be here.
And I'll tell you what, that's exactly what that captain said too. When he was sitting next to another pilot, he said there will never be another wreck on this, that type of plane. I forget the exact name of the plane. And there never was. Died and wounded soldiers and stuff.
I looked up that crash you were talking about. That it's there was a book and a movie called Ghosts of Flight 401. The pilot and the co-pilot from that crash also would kind of spontaneously appear sometimes on other flights after that had happened.
Yep. Sometimes sitting in the cockpit, and sometimes sitting out among the passengers. And the most famous one, I think, was a face appeared in the glass of a microwave in the galley, what they call the galley. And the stewardess saw it, and she just saw the face, and she was just stunned. And she ran out to grab the first person she could find, and she happened to grab, I believe it was the co-pilot, and she brings him in to show him that there's a face, and the face is still there, and he immediately recognized it as the captain of Flight 401 because he had flown. And he told him there will be a fire on this flight. There will be a fire on this flight. So and then he disappeared. They went, they checked the whole plane, and they go downstairs where all the wires and the electronics and everything are. And by gosh, there wasn't a fire in the wires.
Oh,
and they stopped it.
Love that story.
It's amazing.
It's a tragic story, but I mean,
yes,
considering the fact they come back to do good things is very positive.
So if you think about that, if we have that ability, most people are asking me now, I get it so much. It's like, okay, well, how do you prevent being a ghost? And we go through all the philosophical stuff of, no regrets, tell people you love them now, forgive yourself, forgive other people, let it go, let all that earthly stuff go. And some people seem to have the ability, like with jumpers, that, they know they're dead, they know they're a ghost, and they're digging it. They want to be in like the bar. They want to be starting bar fights or listening to the music and playing pool. They want to be pulling practical jokes and slapping people in the butt and, watching the woman turn around and smack the other guy. There's so many levels of it. So you can't really stick all ghosts in one category because there's just so many different types and so many different, points of them, the abilities they seem to have, the mood they're in, a lot of people now, I guess too, I laugh all the time because we see all these paranormal shows, some of our favorites, where everything is a demon. Oh, we got this and this guy, you could just be a pissed off ghost, or how do you know the one you're talking to now is the one that scratched you last night? I mean, we can't really, there's just so many different levels to it,
Wait, so
and
what you're saying is there's no experts.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's what I get tired of hearing is there's all these experts in Bigfoot and paranormal and UFOs. Opinions. How is that?
Yeah.
There's educated opinions, but I don't think it's the same with the Bigfoot. Yeah, UFOs, any of the cryptozoology, any of those things, the 4TN studies, there's just there's no way you can be an expert in it because each individual incident or sighting, even sometimes of the same thing, it's very different than the previous or the next one.
Yes.
Yeah. And I know enough to know that I don't know anything. I'm just like, I'll sit on the fence. I'll sit on the fence.
The happier I am.
Well, if you think about it, I look at it like this, and maybe this makes no sense to anybody, but I've been watching things like Forensic Files and stuff like that way before it got popular, way back in the day. I'm talking like 30 years ago with the first ones where they were talking about the case and they had the suspect and they here's the murder scene and here's all the evidence. And boy, if I was on that jury in the last 25 minutes into that show, man, you're guilty. And then that last 5 minutes, they throw out that little piece of evidence that flips everything. And you go, whoa, glad I wasn't on that jury. Changer. That changed everything. So that's kind of the way I got to look at this stuff because it appears to be this, but what if it's something else manifesting as that? You got to really use everything, and feelings is a big part of it. I mean, I've gotten in the car and just not thinking about anything. My husband's going in to buy a new pair of shoes at a store or something, and I'll open the door and we're talking. I'll put my foot on that blacktop and I'll go, whoa, I'm not going in here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going in here. He's asking me, explain why. Should I go in here? And I'm like, I don't care if you go in, but I'm not going. I can't.
I've done the same thing. I've turned around and went home before because stuff just didn't feel right. Yeah. And, you never know because in hindsight, you can't always tell what, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But I think sometimes there's just, if you follow that gut instinct, and I think that's a thing that mankind and womankind, something you have that goes back to primal times, that fight or flight. And to a degree, it's still there in instinct, and just some people are more tuned to it and better at listening to it than others.
Okay, but Steve, if you could, because I know that you brought this up in our little group chat before we hopped on, if you could take us home with a couple of the pranks that you mentioned in relation to Halloween.
Oh gosh. Okay. Now these are things that I may or may not have been involved in, but I have knowledge of. I don't know what the statute of limitations is there, but yeah, Halloween, that was our night to shine. And it's funny, I was talking with Sysco earlier, and she did some of the same pranks.
Same stuff.
We found out we dressed alike. My little crew, our uniform, we black sweats, black T-shirt, black hoodie, black watch cap, and we had Converse sneakers that were black, and then we'd take a magic marker and blacked out any part that was white, even the little silver eyelets on there. Probably one of the best ones, one of the scariest ones, one that almost got caught and got our butts beat. I had a red wagon. We had filled it full of gravel out of my driveway. The road that I lived on at the time, I was probably 10, 11 years old. It dead-ended into the lake. Well, it was a big party spot for the teenagers. And so Halloween night, there was a lot of traffic on the road. People, they'd go down there and build bonfires and have fun. Well, it kind of slowed down, so we hurried. We towed this kids' wagon load of gravel out there, spread it out in the road, and then several of my mom's brothers were restaurateurs, so we always had these big, what they call a number 10 can of like vegetables and sauces and things come in for a restaurant. So a big can is probably a gallon can or bigger. We had about 5 or 6 of those, lined them up across the road where these gravels were, and then we hid in the ditch. Well, sure enough, first car comes tearing down the road. It's a guy in a Camaro. It's little country road. It's curvy. He hits the curve where we've got all this set up. He sees the cans and, of course, hits the brakes. He wasn't expecting the road to be full of gravel, so the car skids and actually goes off the road into this little small ditch on the other side of the road, on the high side of the curve. And we were just lucky, because if we'd hid there, he would have ran completely over us. But we're on the other side of the road. The guy jumps out, and he looked 8 feet tall. Of course, I was a kid, and he was scary. And he's got a baseball bat. And he's yelling and screaming and cursing. All right, I know you little SOBs are here somewhere, and I'm going to beat your hides, And we're laying there in the bushes and didn't dare move or try to run or anything. The guy got so close, I could see the reflection of the moon in his boots. He was wearing like motorcycle boots or something. They were shiny. I could see the reflection in the boots. That's how close he was. I mean, a couple more swats with a baseball bat, he would have got one of those. Finally, he gets back in his car, drives off. That was the end of that. But that's the closest we ever came to doing something stupid and getting caught. And we didn't, think about the implications, and we could have killed somebody, But I think I'd gotten the idea out of a comic book of all things. But yeah, any kind of pranks. Neighbors' houses were put up for sale. We would collect for sale signs and then put them in different people's yards. I know Sysco talked about hiding and egging cars, and that was done, as a group effort. So people could never tell where the eggs were coming from. Another really funny prank that we did, and repeated this one a couple of different occasions, but our neighbors had a St. Bernard. They liked to come into our yard and take poo. Well, one time I got the bright idea to shovel up this poo and put it in one of my mom's old pocketbooks and then leave it sitting on the side of the road. Well, sure enough, car comes along, hits the brakes, backs up. Guy jumps out, grabs a pocketbook, jumps back in the car, and takes off. Didn't get to actually see the payoff, but the next day, walking up the road about a quarter mile from where he had picked up the pocketbook, it was open and flung out in the field with dog poop everywhere. So.
That's what that a-hole gets, right?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
There's your pay.
It's a wonder that we lived to survive childhood, because we were all like that. We're such holy terrors,
Yeah.
and everybody knew it was us, but they couldn't prove anything. And we'd even have people, "Oh, I saw you do it." No, you didn't, because we were over here doing this guy's house.
Well, talking about
But,
children doing pranks and the scary things, a lot of people are going to be listening to this on Halloween. I got a little short thing here that you might want to finish this up with. You want to hear it, Shannon?
Absolutely.
Okay. If you're home tonight and you've got your knocks on the door and your little trick-or-treaters and everything, I want you to remember this story. Last Halloween, I was waiting at my front door, giving out Halloween candy to trick-or-treaters all evening. Some children came alone, some with accompanied by parents. When they held out their bags, I happily dropped the sweets and treats inside, and as it grew dark, things started to die down. When it seemed like nobody was coming anymore, I decided to call it a night. I was just about to turn out the porch light and go to bed when there was a knock at my door. It seemed much too late for children to still be out, but I grabbed a handful of candy and a door. There were 2 children standing on my porch, but they weren't wearing costumes. They were the strangest children I had ever seen in my life. Their skin was waxy and ghostly white. Their eyes were completely black. Their teeth were jagged and too big to fit in their mouths. The entire look was more disturbing than anything I had seen before. But their clothes were just plain, ordinary shirts and pants. Confused, I asked them, "What are you supposed to be? Some kind of monsters?" "No," said the children, as their mouths widened to broad, leering grins. "Tonight, we're dressed as humans."
Oh. Uh-huh.
Little black-eyed kids slide in there
That's
for
right.
you, kiddo.
I love it.
Isn't that wonderful? I just love
And
it.
something else I want your listeners to be aware of. A lot of times when we do these shows, even if it's a pre-recorded and not live, strange things will happen. I've had people talk about pictures falling off the wall, glass things shattering and stuff when they've been listening to one of these shows that we've been on. So pay attention when you're listening and see if there's anything weird happens. If there is, I'd love to hear about it.
Absolutely.
I would love for something to happen to me, but I'm just saying, guys. I know I heard what you said, and I love that you said that, but I don't know, guys.
Well, I think more is happening than you think, Shannon. I'll message you off the air, and I'll get
Sysco.
you a couple of exercises that you can exercise that. But
I'd love that.
Absolutely, because you do have the ability, and I really think your little pop and crackle the other night was more than you think it is. But I'll just leave you with that. Keep your feet under the covers and your closet door shut, girl.
Yeah, baby. All right, guys, make sure to let everybody know where they can find both of you and your new book.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Steve.
The new book will be Amazon. It should be live and ready to go by the time you read this. And again, don't forget Halloween starting at midnight on the 31st when it rolls over from the 30th to 31st. All day Halloween up to midnight on November 1st. All my books are going to be available for free. The new one will be available to starting then going forward. As always, you can find me on Facebook. I'm on Twitter at Strange and Odd is my Twitter handle. My email is in the back of every one of my books. Steve Stockton, the number is 81@gmail.com. Love to hear from my readers. If you've got a story you'd like to share, feel free, or if you just want to say hello. And Sysco, I know you've got a long list of places where they can find you.
Yes.
So I'll let you give those. And happy Halloween, everybody, by the way.
Happy Halloween. Trick or treat. Okay, yes. Journey Through the Gate, Paranormal Portal podcast. You will find that on Libsyn.com. You find it on iTunes, Cashbox, Google Play, Apple Music, where all fine podcasts go to live or die, whichever. And we also have a fantastic discussion page. That's Facebook. It's Journey Through the Gate Paranormal Portal podcast. Gatekeepers, come on in. Talk about your experiences or just, read about other people's. It's a nice group of experiencers there, and we're always, up for anything strange, weird, and uncanny, come on in. And I've got my Wickedly Wired Wearable shop page will soon be open again, as well as the Bohemian Feather if you got a little hippie gypsy in you. So nice. We've got lots of dream catchers and stuff there too. Also, the new book is called We Are All Children in the Wilderness of the Afterlife. These stories are true. They are written as they happened, and a lot of it unfolds the way I found out about it. So you can, insert your experiences in there and see if we can try to figure some of it out. I don't shove anything down your throat. I pretty much leave it up to the reader. You decide what happened, but I do give my opinion on what I think might have happened. But again, that could change because we're learning about this every day. And it's just important for people to have a place to talk about it, what happened to them. And that also goes for people who have some ability and don't know which way to look for help. We've got information that, free information for people so you don't just have to pull out a Ouija board and find out you're halfway down a dark road that you shouldn't have gone down.
Right.
So, because remember, friends don't let friends Ouija.
That's a great hashtag, by the way. I mean,
yeah, and it's not like we said, it's not the board. It's just you're inviting stuff without having any knowledge. So it's just like picking up a tool that you don't know how to, how to work, because
or dialing a phone number at random. You don't know who you're going to get on and what their intention is.
Yes.
Yeah. And then they have your number and you don't, so that's
right.
We're just trying to give some information out there, and we're just trying to unravel this big, mess of yarn here. But what an interesting subject. It's fun, to get a little scared. It's fun to find out that we don't know everything. There's a lot of stuff out there we don't know, and we probably never will. And when we do, it'll be too late because we'll be haunting somebody else.
That's right.
And as you said, Sysco, she's likened it to a paranormal onion, where you peel off one layer and another and another and another, and but this onion never ends. There's always another layer.
And it's so cool to just delve into it and try to figure some of it out. We came to some revelations tonight about the manifestations and stuff like that. Sometimes they just can't manifest all the way. Sometimes you just get an arm, or sometimes you get a head flying at you. So you never know. You never know. Or just a little pop and crackle and a flash of light. So who knows? Maybe in a couple of weeks you'll get a full, manifestation or something like that. So you'll let us know, won't you, Shannon?
You know what is interesting is I think that when it comes to Ouija boards, I know that people have made homemade ones and they make beautiful wooden ones. And heck, when I was a kid, after I saw the Shadow People, I remember being big into Legos. And, I had all these Lego figurines and the cars. And I made some stupid thing to where the planchette was a Lego car, basically. And I hand wrote. Cool. Yeah, I hand wrote something with a A through Z and the numbers and the yes and no and goodbye and all that. Do you think that anything actually diminishes over time when it comes to something like the Ouija board, or it always is the intention behind the thing?
I think it's the intention.
I think it's the intention. Yeah. Jake, show me.
I think you could do it. I think you could do it with a Sharpie and a mason jar on the floor.
Yeah.
It's your intention.
One of the most active sessions.
Inviting. Yeah. You're inviting.
One of the most active sessions I ever sat in on, they had written the letters and numbers on little scraps of paper and used a squashed beer can for planchette. And it worked just as well, if not better, than any professional board I've ever seen.
It's the same thing. Or, using a pendulum or using, dowsing rods. I use dowsing rods just because I deal with a lot of ghosts that were, a century and a half back. So I don't want to use anything that's going to put them off, because I don't have to explain what this video camera is or what an obelisk box is or what everything else. But I recently, I know you're running out of time, but this is within the last couple of weeks, got to go to Gettysburg again. And I had decided to go in with some people that I had known and got to know that were in a paranormal investigation group. And we tried melting the feeling and the sensitive part with the equipment, and it worked wonderfully. it was my first time I ever got to stand there and communicate with several ghosts and have what I was feeling and the answers I were getting in my head basically backed up by all the equipment, because I walked into a dark cellar in a 200-year-old house when other people, big people, were coming out of it. It's like, you know, the negative energy is too strong. We can't stay here. And I went in with 2 guys and my son behind me, and I said, I'm meant to be here. I'm going down. And after a couple of flashlight, you know, we had 2 flashlights that went on and off, you know, when we were requested. They had other equipment there. They even had the thing where you get the little stick figures when they show up. And I wasn't paying any attention to that because I was tuned into what I was talking to. And after we did some things, I got the feeling that we had lifted that vibration up just enough to have some of them listen to me. And I stepped forward, and they kept doing their equipment. And when I asked, is there anyone here who is willing to talk to me so that I can help you? Would anybody here like help? And over that box that picks up the voice, you heard in 2 separate frequency sounds. One was high and one was low. It was, yes, please. Not only did they answer me, but they were polite. And on 2 separate pieces of equipment behind me, the words came up, help and help, on 2 separate pieces of equipment. And I stood there and I said, okay, let's begin. And we did. And that was beautiful, man. It was beautiful. It was, you know, I shook for probably 3 hours afterwards. We were down there for an hour and a half. But we helped some people that night. And those guys had been in there. It'd been 155 years. They'd been wandering. There was 9 Confederate and 2 Union. And a lady who had been burnt to death and had a child with her.
Oh, geez.
So if you can take everything we've learned, all the technology, all the equipment, all the knowledge that we've been able to gather, all the data, and you can take the old ways of just your inherent feeling and a little bit of ability, because I don't have much, and your intent, and you can walk in with all of that and walk out and help a human being. My God, we're getting somewhere.
One other little plug I want to put in for Sysco, and she didn't ask me to do this or anything. In her Bohemian Feather shop, she has got pendulums. And if you're into pendulum dowsing or any type of psychometry, these are some of the most powerful pendulums I've ever worked with. And I don't say that lightly. They're very highly tuned to the vibrational whatever. And I had some on display. I went to a little psychic fair type thing in Vancouver last year, and she sent me some of them to take with me. I had them hanging on a little stand where they were suspended, and the one that I kept for myself, it was vibrating on its own accord. I mean, the other ones were just kind of hanging there. This one was just like, and that's the one I've got now. So anybody that's into pendulums, check about in her store. Sorry, Sysco, I hope you don't mind.
Yeah, no.
Plugging those.
Yeah, Sysco, what is the address for that?
It's the Bohemian Feather on a Facebook page. It's a shop there.
Perfect.
And also Wickedly Wired. Yeah, I'm doing both my shops on Facebook. I did have separate websites, but now I'm putting everything there. It's just simple for the people. It's simple for the people. And now, you know, we've got a lot of the stuff with my son and stuff is doing great. So in the book, everything's coming out and open all at once.
Well, so you know, I cannot wait to talk to you guys the next time. And everyone will hear about that soon. But thanks again, you guys. The 3rd annual. Welcome. Thank you so much. And I can't wait for the 4th annual, but I will talk to you guys before that.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Shannon. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Yes.
And red ribbon, red eyes, red ribbon.
Red ribbon.
Yes.
I dare you.
Try to go to sleep.
Don't call me when he shows up, Steve. I'm booked, man.
With the hair flowing in the wind.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
It's scary. Scary stuff. I love you guys.
Love
Have
you.
a happy Halloween.
Happy
and
Halloween.
be careful when you open that door for trick-or-treaters.
Happy Halloween, everybody. Thanks for having us on.
Well, I'm so-and-so. I was given this name by my parents. I've been to such and such a college. I've done these things in my profession. I produce a little biography. Buddha says, forget it. That's not true. That's some story. That's all gone. That's all past. I want to see the real you are now. Well, nobody knows who that is. Because we don't know ourselves except through listening to our echoes and consulting our memories. But then there's a real you, and that again leads us back to this question. Who are you? That is the real you. We shall see how they play with this exam by the koans to get you to come out of your shell and find out who you really are. he says, when you settle down in the train to read your newspaper and so on, you are not the same person who a little while ago left the platform. If you think you are linking your moments up in a chain. And this is what binds you to the wheel of birth and death. But when you know that every moment in which you are is the only moment, this comes into Zen. The master will say to somebody, get up and walk across the room. And he comes back and he says, where are your footprints? They've gone. So where are you? Who are you? When we are asked who we are, we usually give a kind of recitation of a history.